All right, everybody. It's the final day of court of episode 5 of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Rise from the Ashes. This is going to be a long day of court. It's at least 3 segments, I think. So let's just jump right in. February 25th, 9:47 a.m., District Court, Defendant Lobby number 2. This is the defendant lobby, all right, but there's no defendant. I've been trying to reach Lana all morning. Where could she be? And where's Emma, for that matter? It's almost as if something's been happening behind the scenes. Edgeworth. Knowing you, you've already figured it out. Who's the owner of the 7777 ID number? That is. Well, I have a pretty strong hunch. Looks like I'm not the only one who's figured it out. You know, the only reason this trial didn't reach a verdict yesterday is because there was still room for doubt regarding this ID record. If that number does belong to whom you suspect, then no doubt will remain. After all, he hasn't been officially charged with anything. True, not yet. In any event, once all doubt has been removed from that list, I can call for a ruling. 5 minutes, Mr. Wright, and Chief Prosecutor Skye will be found guilty. But she didn't do it! I figured you'd say as much. That's why I came here, to hear what you have to say. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. Him cavorting with the defense attorney is more corrupt than him submitting falsified evidence that he was not aware of. Lana's hiding something, and the only way we'll ever know the truth is to draw it out of her. The truth. Everything goes back to the SL9 incident. Don't be stupid. Today's the last day of the trial. We don't have time to reminisce about the past. That depends on you. If she's found guilty, you'll lose your only chance to find out what really happened. I'll think about it. See you in court, Wright. This is it. If I'm ever going to find out what Chief Gant has on her, it's now. February 25th, 10 a.m., District Court, Courtroom number 9. Rubble, 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 rubble. Clack. Court is now in session for the trial of Miss Lana Skye. The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. Normally, this is when the prosecution puts forth its opening statement. But before that, the police chief has a proposal to make. Chief Gant. I'll just phase in here. Morning, folks. How's everyone doing? Hey, Udgy. Been back to the pool yet? No, I've been drowning enough as it is in my work. Oh, that's a good one. Don't think I can top that. If you don't mind me asking, Chief, exactly what is this proposal of yours? Lana, that is to say, the defendant, has asked me if she could speak directly to the court. She wants to do what? Having heard what she intends to say, I feel she should be granted her request. In the end, it should save everyone a lot of time and trouble. What's she doing now? What's this all about, defendant? I'd just like to make one simple request, and I'll be finished. Well then, what's your request? Your Honor, I'd like you to put an immediate end to this trial. Huh? I confess to all charges against me. On February 21st of this year, I murdered Detective Bruce Goodman in the underground parking lot of the prosecutor's office. No, Lana! Rubble, rubble. Clack, 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 clack. Objection. You can't. Your Honor, the defendant's claim does not change the defense's plea. In that case, Mr. Wright, I no longer require your services. But Lana! Your Honor, I hereby forfeit my right to an attorney. The prosecution may lack direct evidence against me, but it has sufficiently proven its case through testimony and circumstantial evidence. I would like you to render your verdict now, if you please. Well, the defendant certainly has the right to self-representation. Her request is legally valid, although this is an unprecedented situation. Clack. Indeed, it appears there is no further need to continue this trial, even if Mr. Wright may feel otherwise. This can't be happening. It appears the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant... Objection. One moment, Your Honor. Well, Mr. Edgeworth, the prosecution has not yet proven the defendant guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. Any ruling at this stage would certainly be premature. Come now, Worthy. I understand this is a difficult time for you, but why don't you just be a good little boy and keep your mouth shut, I don't think I care for your tone, Chief Gant. What? Creating another fabrication to cover up your past mistakes? Sorry, but I'm no longer the naive little boy you would have me be. With this sudden confession from the defendant, it's obvious to me some kind of deal was struck behind the scenes. Some kind of deal, Not everyone operates as you do, Worthy. I thought so. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to change its first witness. Oh, to whom? As its first witness, the prosecution would like to call Miss Emma Skye. I request the court hears her testimony. Hold it. Mr. Edgeworth, I am exercising my right to self-representation. I don't think we need to continue. I don't care what you think, Miss Skye. The exposure of truth sometimes results in tragedy. However, no matter how tragic the truth may be, it would be an even greater tragedy to avert one's eyes from it. Clack. Very well, the court shall grant the prosecution's request. That's okay with you, right, Chief Gant? Worthy, you'll live to regret this. Mark my words. Miss Emma Skye, please take the stand. Looks like Edgeworth has decided to take the horse by the reins. Now then, witness, please state your name and occupation. My name is Emma Skye. My occupation? I'm Lana's little sister, and I want to be a scientific investigator. 2 years ago, you encountered the serial killer Joe Dark of the Joe Dark killings. Is that correct? Yes. I'm trying my hardest to forget about that, though. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to recall those events one more time. Mr. Edgeworth, please remember this trial concerns the murder of Detective Goodman. Is an incident that was resolved 2 years ago really all that relevant? Yes, it most certainly is. Well, okay then. He sure gave in fast. Now, please testify about what happened to you 2 years ago. The trip to yesteryear has finally begun. It's bound to lead to the truth behind this trial. 2 years ago. I was waiting in my sister's office that day. A man came running in and took me hostage. Neil Marshall rescued me. But I'll never forget what I saw in that instant. The man raised up his knife and and stabbed Mr. Marshall in the chest. It's a good thing you weren't harmed. I passed out. I don't remember much. That's understandable. However, please tell me, Mr. Edgeworth, what does this testimony have to do with Detective Goodman's murder? That will soon become apparent, Your Honor. You've got to admire him for his courage, considering he has no evidence. Very well, the defense may begin its cross-examination. Okay, Emma. Time to put you on the hot seat. I was waiting in my sister's office that day. Hold it. 2 years ago, the defendant was a detective at the police department, correct? Yes, she was second in command under the deputy chief of police, Gant. My sister, she was the best detective ever. She was the bestest detective ever. Yes, I remember. Deputy Chief Gant and Miss Skye used to be quite the pair. I believe they shared the same office. That's right. I'd always sit at my sister's desk and dream about playing that organ. I wanted to play it that day, too. The police department and the prosecutor's office held a ceremony that day. Lana promised to take me to dinner after she finished her work. A man came running in and took me hostage. Hold it. A man? Yes, Joe Dark. He was a serial murderer. Joe Dark was brought in for questioning on the day of that ceremony. We were desperate to get anything on him that would lead to an arrest. When he saw his chance, he fled the room, right? Upon fleeing the room, Dark proceeded to take the elevator. He must have been in a panic because the elevator was going up. Then he ran into Skye and Gant's office. There was a lot of noise coming from outside, so I opened up the door to have a look. That's when I saw him. Neil Marshall rescued me. Hold it. What was the prosecutor doing there? That day, there were 2 people present during Dark's questioning. Deputy Chief Damon Gant and Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Almost forgot about Gant. Neil Marshall had just received the King of Prosecutors Award. Young and dedicated, he went straight to the questioning room after the ceremony. I assume that would also be why he was the first to run after Dark. When Dark grabbed me, I thought I was as good as dead. And that's when Prosecutor Marshall came running in. I don't clearly remember what happened then. But I'll never forget what I saw in that instant. Hold it. Can you tell us about that? Mr. Marshall jumped on Dark. Just then, the lights went out. The lights? It was just about this time of year. There was a terrible storm going on, and lightning struck nearby. So the electricity went out? Wait a minute. If it was pitch dark in that room, you shouldn't have been able to see anything, right? Right, but just then, lightning flashed again outside. That sudden flash left an unforgettable image on the scene in my mind. I see. I told the detective about what I saw then. The detective? Yes, Detective Goodman. He was in charge of the case. Detective Bruce Goodman, the victim. Let's hear more. So you spoke with Detective Goodman about this 2 years ago? Yes. That's what's so scary about this trial. And you told Detective Goodman about what you saw? Yes, but at the time the words just wouldn't come out. That's why I drew a picture. A picture? Yes, I think she mentioned that before. Well, Mr. Wright, have you heard enough? This picture the witness drew. I believe it has a very important meaning. Objection. But the list of evidence I was given 2 years ago didn't contain a picture. Witness, would you mind if we added this statement to your testimony? Yes, Your Honor. I drew a picture of that scene once, but it seems to have been lost. Oh, So you think. Objection. Mr. Edgeworth. This little girl put all her heart into drawing that picture. And yet, you would insist on denying its existence? Huh? I'm not the bad guy. All I'm saying is that, as the prosecutor for that case, I wasn't handed such a picture. That may well be, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Behold, this is the evidence list from the SL9 incident. Please turn it over, Your Honor. Turn it over. Turn it over. Ah! What's this? Yes. What is that? Hey, that's it. That's the picture I drew. Rubble, 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 rubble. Indeed, two men appear to be wrestling here. Objection. What's the meaning of this? What are you doing with that list? Me? Only the prosecutor in charge should have access to that list. Huh? These lists, they're different from each other. What? It would appear, Mr. Edgeworth, that the evidence list you were handed 2 years ago was incomplete. These two lists fit together to form one. You can see the marks here where they were torn apart from each other. So you see, Mr. Edgeworth, it's quite obvious what happened. 2 years ago, only half the evidence list in that case ever reached you. What? What? Rubble, rubble, rubble. Clack. Order, order! But Miss Sky, why did you draw your picture on the back of such an important list? Because that's what Detective Goodman handed me in the questioning room, Your Honor. Wait a minute. If this list was torn in half, then that means... Your Honor. Are you all right, Mr. Wright? Your eyes are bulging from your head. If the evidence list was torn in half, then there might be more of the drawing on the back of Mr. Edgeworth's list. Yes, that's quite conceivable. Mr. Edgeworth? It's possible. I've never looked at... Is something wrong? Are you having a stroke? Do you even have to ask? Sorry, Your Honor. Somehow this piece of paper I've had for years, I have never had the inclination to flip it over. Somehow. There is indeed something drawn on the back of my list. It's that thing. That thing. That thing that was dancing in the evidence room. Clearly, this act of vandalism is the work of a certain chief of detectives. I guess he was out of the scrap paper. Evidence list restored and updated in the court record. Clack. Very well, witness. Will you please testify about this picture you drew 2 years ago? Huh? Yes, sir, Your Honor. What's wrong with Emma? She seems to be thinking about something when she was looking at that picture. Witness testimony. This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. The flash of lightning was so bright, all I could see were shadows. After that, I must have fainted. This picture shows exactly what I saw in that instant. To think a flash of lightning could burn such an image in your mind. Thanks to that, though, she was able to show us exactly what she saw. Well, I don't see any contradictions here. This clearly shows Joe Dark about... this clearly shows Joe Dark about to murder Prosecutor Neil Marshall. The defense may now begin its cross-examination. Okay. This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. Did you draw this picture right after the incident? I think I drew it 2 or 3 days later. At first, I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't do anything. During that time, the investigation team was reorganized. Detective Goodman was placed in charge, under the direction of Damon Gant and Lana Skye. 2 or 3 days later... The memory should still have been fresh in your mind. Excuse me, witness. But can you please tell us why this picture is painted all black? The flash of lightning was so bright, all I could see were shadows. Thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening. Hold it. So at the time you didn't even know it was Mr. Marshall who had come to your rescue? No, I couldn't see him clearly. The lightning was so bright, and I was knocked to the floor. You were knocked to the floor? Dark had a tight grip on me, but when Mr. Marshall jumped on him, I was knocked away. I turned around, and that's when the lightning flashed. Poor Emma. I'm just glad she wasn't hurt. What happened after the lightning flashed? After that, I must have fainted. Hold it. You mean you didn't see the actual murder take place? No, I'm sorry. Objection. The flash of lightning only drove off the darkness for a split second. Not only that, but the trauma of the situation understandably caused the witness to faint. Do you really need to torture this girl any further? What, Nani? Hey, I'm not the bad guy here. Anyway, this picture shows exactly what I saw in that instant. Hold it. Sorry for asking so many times, but are you sure you drew exactly what you saw? Of course, this is the exact scene. It wasn't influenced in any way from your talks with the detectives? Objection. Are you insinuating we somehow manipulated her memory, Mr. Wright? No, of course not. I'd better watch out, or he might find something. He might find some way to cut my salary. I drew this picture before I heard anything from the detectives, so I don't think anyone's story would have influenced me. Mr. Wright, is there something that's bothering you about this picture? Huh? Oh, well. That's strange. She claims this is exactly the scene that was imprinted in her mind. And yet, there's clearly a contradiction here. Is there now? Okay. Let's go find that again. Oh, wait. Okay, so there's got to be a contradiction. Stabbed in the back. Aha. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this picture the witness drew contains a blatant contradiction. What? But I still remember it just like it was yesterday. Clack. Mr. Wright, perhaps it would be faster if you simply pointed out this contradiction for us. What part of this picture contradicts the autopsy report? I hope... I mean, the whole thing, obviously, but I hope his position is what contradicts, because he got stabbed in the back. I think it's, this part here. Oh, no! Oh, I don't see what's so strange about that. That's because the drawing stinks. Jesus. No! Mr. Wright, how could you? The act of making an innocent girl cry should warrant the death penalty. Man, guess he means I shouldn't shift the blame to others. Yes, well, so long as the defense has learned his lesson. I'd better take another look at the autopsy report and the picture. Click. Mr. Wright, perhaps it would be faster if you simply pointed out this contradiction for us. What part of this picture contradicts the autopsy report? Is it the knife? Because the knife has a flat end? Take that. The contradiction, of course, lies here. Take a look at the knife the man is holding. If you look closely, you can see its tip is broken. Even I don't have to look closely to see that, Mr. Wright. But, Mr. Wright, look at the evidence. See the murder weapon? Its tip is broken too. If I recall, the tip of the knife was found broken off in the victim's body. It was the conclusive piece of evidence that proved Joe Dark was the murderer. I'm afraid it's not so simple, Emma. Objection. And where, pray tell, could you possibly see a problem? It's obvious, really. The victim suffered a single stab wound to the back. If the victim was only stabbed once, then the murder weapon should not yet be broken. Ah! What's the meaning of this? Perhaps the knife was broken beforehand. Objection. Sorry, but I'm afraid that's not possible. The tip of the knife was found inside the victim's body. If it was broken beforehand, it couldn't possibly wind up there. Clack. That's right, but what does this mean? Objection. The tip of the knife was undeniably discovered within the victim's body. The only possible explanation is the witness's memory is mistaken. Objection. That's why I asked her so many times if she was sure she remembered correctly. I believe you were annoyed at the time, but she was sure she remembered correctly. But there's no other way to explain this inconsistency. Objection. Not so fast, Mr. Edgeworth. There is another explanation. Have you forgotten already? About a little something called falsified evidence? Seems you're a little bit accountable in that. You're treading on thin ice, right? All I'm saying is that this broken knife tip might be the piece of evidence that was forged. You can't deny the possibility. No. Ugh. Clack, clack, clack. Order, order, order! Are you saying the investigation really was corrupted? Your Honor, please allow me to once again go over the events that took place the day of the murder. And I'll go really slowly, just for you. The police department and the prosecutor's office were holding a ceremony that day. After receiving the King of Prosecutors Award at the ceremony, Neil Marshall questioned Joe Dark along with Damon Gant. During his questioning, Joe Dark fled the room. Prosecutor Marshall chased after him and was killed by Dark. It is my belief that somewhere in this history there is a lie. I'm not lying. The man really was holding up a broken knife. If that's true, then there's no other way around it. This could not have been the actual murder weapon. There must have been another broken knife. What are the chances of there being two broken knives? Another broken knife beside Joe Dark's. Could there have been one? No, there is another. If the witness is this adamant about the accuracy of what she saw, it can't just be explained away by a simple observational error. Mr. Wright? In that instant, Emma really did see a broken knife. Clack. I assume then that you have some information about this other broken knife. If so, please feel free to enlighten us. The murder weapon was already broken prior to the murder. There's only one... phlegm. There's only one way. Take a look at this. Here's the real murder weapon. Okay, it's not that. There it is. Take that. The answer lies in the past. 2 years in the past, in fact. Right here inside this picture. Look at this photograph. This is a picture of the award ceremony. This is... says Edgeworth. What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? It's the broken murder weapon. Notice the award Prosecutor Marshall is holding. That's a broken knife. As we earlier concluded, the knife in the drawing was not Joe Dark's knife. That being the case, the knife the witness saw was in all likelihood this award. Rubble, 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 clack, clack, clack. Order, order, order! Neil Marshall was awarded King of Prosecutors that day. As an award, he was given this broken shield and knife. When he chased after Joe Dark, he pulled out this knife. Being a prosecutor, he did not carry a pistol. This broken knife was the only weapon he had in this dangerous situation. Objection. But that can't be. Oh? And why not, Mr. Edgeworth? Because if the King of Prosecutors award knife was the murder weapon, then the murderer and that victim, the murderer and that victim would be reversed. What do you mean? I mean, this man raising a knife would have been Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Oh. Oh. Clack, clack, clack. But the prosecutor was the one who actually died. That's true. What's going on here? It seems Mr. Wright has been a bit too eager to jump to conclusions. Again. Hold it. Wait. I remember now. I remember everything. Witness? Mr. Edgeworth? What is it? Could you show me your evidence list again, please? His list? The one with that picture scribbled on the back? This poor drawing you made? I knew it. This picture. I'm the one who drew it. What? You drew that? That's right. The list wasn't torn in half at the time when I drew this picture. All this time I've been trying so hard to forget. I must have locked this part away deep inside me. Clack. Perhaps it would be best if we added this to the witness's testimony. Would you please tell us what you've recalled, Miss Skye? Yes, Your Honor. First the knife mix-up, and now the blue badger. This should be interesting. Witness testimony. When I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked and rushed toward both of them. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. Just then there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the blue badger. He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. This is certainly most unusual. Objection. Try impossible. The chief of detectives hadn't even designed him until this year. That would mean he didn't even exist 2 years ago. Yes, well, the defense may now begin its cross-examination. Hold it! Stop, please. Don't pursue this any further. Lana? What's the meaning of this? Please remain seated in the defendant's chair. But you can't do this. I've already confessed to the crime. Why can't you just leave it at that? Chief Prosecutor Sky. We've already come this far. It's too late to turn back. Clack. Silence! The defense will now begin its cross-examination. Bailiff, please detain the defendant. Seems we're finally getting to the core of the matter. Emma's recollection. When I saw the man raise his knife... Hold it! Not even going to let you finish that sentence. When you say that man, I assume you refer to Joe Dark? Yes, at least I think it was him. You think? All I could really see were the shadows. The power outage that immediately preceded the incident is also documented in the prosecutor's office reports. So then you... Yeah, I panicked and rushed toward both of them. Why would you do something so dangerous? What else could I have done? He was about to stab Mr. Marshall. She seems convinced that Dark was the one holding the knife. But as we've just theorized, Mr. Marshall was the one holding the knife. Well, I didn't know that at the time, okay? Jeez. When that Dark guy knocked me down, all I could think was, I've got to help that other person. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. Hold it. What do you mean you think? It all happened so fast. And I was in shock, and I was a little kid. Quit picking on me. I don't remember everything clearly. What I did, it's all kind of a blur. Miss Sky was almost killed before she was witness to a murder about to take place. With so much happening in a matter of seconds, a little disorientation is only natural. I saw the man about to stab the other person, who I thought was Mr. Marshall. I knew I had to stop the man with the knife. What you did was very brave, young girl. So then, what happened next? Just then, there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the blue badger. It was very, very frightening. I know I already did that joke, but... Are you sure about this? Of course. See? I even drew the picture of him here. But it was the chief of detectives who thought up this hideous beast, and that was just a year... that was just last year. The blue badger didn't exist 2 years ago. This is all quite verifiable. I know it sounds strange. I was surprised too when I saw him at the police department. I had this nagging feeling that I'd seen him before somewhere. Now I finally remember. Oh, brother, just when you thought that thing had caused enough commotion. Tell us, where in the room did you see him dancing? He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. Hold it. His shadow? So you mean you didn't actually see his face with its winning smile and all? That's right, but I still remember it. He had 3 creepy horns. This is pointless. That thing couldn't have possibly existed 2 years ago. The witness must be mistaken. Objection. That may well be. But what's important is what caused her to think she saw what she did. She obviously drew it back then, so we have to figure out the root of this. Oh, and I suppose you have an explanation? If so, then by all means, please tell us what this shadow really was. What was it Emma saw when that lightning flashed? Who is this blue badger really? I just might know. The blue badger hadn't even been dreamt up when Emma drew this picture, yet she's certain she saw its shadow. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the defense's belief that on that fateful day 2 years ago, there indeed was something that looked similar to the blue badger. Something that is now sitting in this very room. Mr. Wright! Clack! In this room? Very well, Mr. Wright. What is it that the witness saw in that instant? Please show the mysterious blue badger look-alike. Okay, not that. God, this case has so much evidence. Here we go. Take that. The mysterious blue badger was, in fact, this. What that's? What exactly is that? I believe it's some sort of jar. But Mr. Wright, that doesn't look anything like the blue badger. Indeed it doesn't. As it stands now, it's just a plain jar, an ugly jar at that. However, what if we were to change our viewpoint? Our viewpoint, I've got to show them the correct angle to make it look like the blue badger. Okay. Nope, nope, nope. Let's see. If I remember right, this is pretty picky. Something like that. Percent. Take that. Well, is this a miracle or what? No one can possibly deny this jar's resemblance to the blue badger. No. It can't be. Rubble, 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 rubble. Clack, 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 clack. Order, order! The defense has proven its claim. Amazing. The mysterious blue badger witnessed on the day of the crime was actually this. Objection. Although we all enjoyed Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, one question remains. What's your point? What do you mean? So that blue badger thing was actually just a jar. That doesn't change anything. Objection. I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed? Very well, then please tell us. What's different now that we know the witness saw this? What's different now that we know the witness saw this jar? Oh, shit. Allow me to take the... I didn't even see what that was. Okay, allow me to take these in turn. At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. At a very specific angle, I might add, Mr. Wright. Yes, well, knowing this, where could she have seen this jar? Where? The location of the jar is shown in a picture taken on the day of the crime. It's on a shelf in the office of Damon Gant. Objection! But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Objection! Yes, and it is these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Sky's office. It happened on the other side of the room, in Chief Gant's office. Objection! Are you implying the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gant's office to Lana Sky's office? Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason. Do you know what that reason was, Mr. Wright? I finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial. It's too late to quit now, though. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding up the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying? That would have been, the impact the man made when he was knocked into the wall? Ladies and gentlemen, if I may draw your attention to this picture once more. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? Ah! The suit of armor, holding a very sharp and dangerous looking sword. Yes. And since the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife, he would have had to have been Neil Marshall wielding the King of Prosecutors trophy. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yeah. There is another possibility of what actually transpired in that room. Another possibility. Of course, the perpetrator would have had no idea, but nevertheless, I don't know if I could go through with this. Mr. Wright, what's the matter? If events took place as the defense theorizes, then the outcome is obvious. In that moment, assuming the man Emma Skye knocked away was actually Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Oosh. You mean Mr. Marshall died because of me? No! Thud. Look what you've done, Wright. I never imagined her testimony would lead to this. So it was the witness who took the victim's life, and then proved so with her own testimony. This is unprecedented. Rubble, 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 rubble. Objection. What are you saying? I'm sorry, Miss Skye, but given the circumstances... Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How can you think it was Emma? How dare you try to pin the crime on her? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone else from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're going to have to prove. You're going to have proof. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Neil Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't. Yes, it certainly would be difficult to prove this with evidence. If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in the incident are dead. We certainly can't get dead people to testify. This has all been a wild goose chase from the beginning. Touché, Miss Skye. Of course, that only leaves us with one possibility. You mean there's still another possibility? What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or for worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life. In one manner or another. That's impossible. Click. Very well, Mr. Wright. This is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased. Does such a message exist? I've got to think back to the court record. The real murderer's name that the victim may have left behind is in the evidence. This message from the deceased is already in our possession. Mr. Wright, will you stop at nothing to prove my sister is a murderer? Do not be mistaken, Miss Skye. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek. The truth. No matter how painful it may be. Click. Well then, Mr. Wright, please show us the piece of evidence that conveys a message from the deceased. It should be... Did I pass it already? No. Where the hell is it? Oh, it's all the way at the end. Okay. Should have gone the other way. Take that! This is the message left by the deceased. This is that blue badger from before, right? Oh, is he going to just speak the killer's name? If that thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgetting this is just a jar. A message was left here on the surface of this jar. What do you mean? If you look closely, you can see a faint trail of blood on this jar. EA Sports. Clearly what it says. If you look closely, you can see a faint trail of blood on this jar. It looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice, for some reason, the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away. Yes, there is a line here, drawn in blood. So what you're saying is these dots were once lines. Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used a few precious moments left to him to leave behind a message. One that someone apparently wiped away, but blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so. All we need to do is connect the dots, and the victim's message will become apparent. No! Crack. Mr. Wright, what kind of message did the victim leave for us? Your Honor, I believe these bloodstains will reveal to us the answer. I've got to connect these dots to make letters. There's only one thing the victim would have written given the circumstances. His murderer's name. Or so we assume. Okay. Connect the dots. La 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 la. Okay, there we go. Now then. Okay. Take that. It's a defense attorney's duty to prove their client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After all my efforts, I never thought it would turn out like this. Emma. So this is the final message Prosecutor Marshall left behind. I see. Of all people. Arrest her! She may not have meant it, but in the end, the one who took the victim's life was Emma Skye. And that's why Lana forged the evidence. See, Worthy? Can't say I didn't warn you. Chief Gant. Do you understand the implications of what you've done? What? What are you talking about? 2 years ago, Joe Dark was sentenced to death. He was convicted because of his final murder. I believe you were the prosecutor in the case, were you not? Yes, Worthy. Because of you, an innocent man was sentenced to death. Not only that, but you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. Say that again. You used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. Neil slurs his words when he talks because he can't talk. Objection. But Joe Dark really was a serial murderer. That's undeniable. I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know? We aren't defenders of justice. What? We're merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter, even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on the prosecutor in charge. Despite what anyone may say, this fact cannot be denied. What's going on at the prosecutor's office? They just stand there like it was nothing. Like it wasn't his fault. Order, 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 order! Outrage in the gallery. I bumped the controller on one of those. So I didn't get to see what they said. The gavel's pounding fell on deaf ears. Unable to settle the crowd, the judge declared a recess. Where this trial is headed, no one knows. To be continued. And with that, I think I'm going to call it quits for the night, but I'll pick this up on another night where I'll finish up Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, the original game. So, see you then, and I shall return.